Before your first sip of wine at dinner, before the breweries, the cocktail bars, the ancient Roman feasts, there was a moment, a single, accidental, world-changing moment, when a prehistoric human put rotting fruit in their mouth and liked it. Hey, welcome back. Today we're going on a journey, not just through history, but through prehistory. We're talking about alcohol, but not the kind you order at a bar. We're going back, way, way back, to a time before written language, before farming, before civilization as we know it, and we're asking one of the most fascinating questions in all of human history. Did our ancient ancestors drink alcohol? And if so, when did it start? The answer is going to surprise you, because it turns out the story of alcohol isn't just a story about humans, it's a story about evolution itself. Let's go. First, let's understand something fundamental. Alcohol doesn't need humans to exist. Fermentation, the process that creates alcohol, is one of the oldest chemical reactions on Earth. It happens when yeast breaks down sugars and produces ethanol as a byproduct, and yeast has been around for hundreds of millions of years. So here's what that means. Every time a piece of fruit fell from a tree, sat on the ground, and warmed in the sun, natural fermentation kicked in. Ripe fruit is basically nature's brewery. And who was eating that fermenting fruit long before humans even existed? Animals. There are documented cases of elephants in Africa seeking out fermented marula fruit. Monkeys in the wild have been observed eating overripe fruit with measurable ethanol content. Even fruit flies have evolved a preference for alcohol because it protects their larvae from parasites. So before we even get to humans, we have to accept a stunning scientific truth. The attraction to fermented substances isn't a human weakness. It's a trait that may have evolved over tens of millions of years. This is what scientists call the drunken monkey hypothesis, proposed by primatologist Robert Dudley in 2000. The idea is that our primate ancestors developed a taste for ripe, slightly fermented fruit because the smell of ethanol was a reliable signal that food was sugar-rich, calorie-dense, and ready to eat. In other words, our ancestors didn't discover alcohol, they were born attracted to it. Now here's where it gets wild. In 2014, a team of researchers published a groundbreaking study analyzing the gene that codes for an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase 4, or ADH4, in 28 different primate species. This enzyme is what allows the body to break down ethanol. And what did they find? Approximately 10 million years ago, right around the time our ancestors descended from the trees and began spending more time on the ground, the ADH4 gene mutated massively. The new version of the enzyme was 40 times more efficient at metabolizing ethanol than the older version. Think about what that means. 10 million years before wine, before beer, before any kind of intentional brewing, the human body was being engineered by evolution to handle alcohol. Why? Because ground-dwelling primates encountered more fermenting fruit on the forest floor, and those who could metabolize it without getting dangerously intoxicated survived better. They got the calories, they found the food, they lived. This is not a coincidence. This is natural selection at work. So before a single human ever deliberately brewed anything, our biology was already deeply entwined with fermented substances. Now let's fast forward to modern humans and ask, when did we start intentionally making alcohol? Because there's a huge difference between stumbling upon fermented fruit and actually brewing something on purpose. And the archaeological evidence is absolutely incredible. The oldest confirmed traces of winemaking come from the Republic of Georgia. In 2017, archaeologists discovered pottery jars dating back to roughly 6,000 BCE, about 8,000 years ago, with chemical traces of wine grape residue. These weren't just storage vessels, they were purpose-built fermentation containers. But wine isn't even the beginning. In 2004, scientists analyzed pottery fragments from the village of Jiahu in China, dated to around 7,000 BCE, and found chemical residue of a mixed fermented beverage made from rice, honey, hawthorn fruit, and wild grapes. 9,000 years ago, that's over 4 millennia before the Egyptian pyramids. The Zagros Mountains of ancient Iran have yielded pottery from around 5,400 BCE, with clear evidence of wine residue, including traces of tartaric acid and a preservative resin, suggesting intentional wine storage. And here's one that will blow your mind. Some anthropologists have actually argued that one of the reasons humans first began farming grain was not to make bread, but to brew beer. Ancient Egyptian workers building monuments were paid in beer rations. Beer was a nutritional staple, a social ritual, and a religious offering all at once. Evidence of organized beer production in Egypt dates to at least 3400 BCE, and possibly much earlier. Now we arrive at one of the most controversial and utterly fascinating debates in all of anthropology. Did the desire for alcohol help kickstart human civilization? It sounds absurd, but hear me out. The standard story of civilization goes like this. Humans started farming. Farming created surplus food. Surplus food allowed population growth. Population growth led to cities and specialization. Specialization led to writing, trade, and culture. But some researchers, including archaeologist Patrick McGovern, known as the Indiana Jones of ancient alcoholic beverages, argue that the arrow of causality may run the other way. Humans may have begun deliberately cultivating grain in order to ferment it. The desire for a reliable source of alcohol may have been one of the driving forces behind the agricultural revolution itself. The site of Göbekli Tepe in modern Turkey is key to this argument. Dated to around 9600 BCE, it's the world's oldest known monumental stone structure, built before agriculture was established in the region. And what did archaeologists find there? Massive stone vessels, capable of holding hundreds of liters of liquid, almost certainly used for large-scale fermented beverage production. People were gathering, building monumental temples, and brewing alcohol together before farming was even a thing. Whether or not alcohol drove civilization, one thing is clear. From the very earliest human gatherings, alcohol and community were deeply, inextricably linked. So what do we take from all of this? We were biologically prepared for alcohol before we invented it. Our bodies didn't adapt to drinking. We adapted because fermenting fruit was a natural part of our ancestral environment for millions of years. The intentional production of alcohol is one of humanity's oldest technologies. Before the wheel, before the written word, before metal, people were fermenting things. This is not a footnote in human history. This is chapter 1. And alcohol has always been about more than intoxication. In every ancient culture we know of, Sumerian, Egyptian, Chinese, Mesoamerican, fermented beverages were tied to ritual, religion, medicine, and social bonding. The village brewery wasn't just a bar, it was the heart of the community. Understanding our relationship with alcohol requires understanding our deep evolutionary past. The impulse isn't moral weakness, it's millions of years of evolution pointing at a calorie-dense, preservation-safe, socially reinforcing substance and saying, "This is good." Remember this. That doesn't mean alcohol is always good for us today. Modern concentrations of ethanol are far beyond anything our ancestors encountered in wild fruit, but it does mean the relationship is ancient, complex, and deeply human. So, when did ancient humans start drinking alcohol? The honest answer is, we never really stopped. From the first primates navigating fermented fruit on a forest floor, to the first breweries of ancient China and the Middle East, to the glass on your counter right now, this is one of the longest, most unbroken threads in all of human experience, and honestly, that's kind of remarkable. If you want to go deeper on this topic, I highly recommend the work of archaeologist Patrick McGovern. His book, Uncorking the Past, is absolutely fantastic. I'll link it below. If you found this video interesting, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and drop a comment. What do you think? Did alcohol help build civilization, or is that a stretch? I'll see you in the next one.